What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are once again discussing the Reptilians. I just want to say first and foremost that I finished this script before I came across information, and it's very credible information that not all reptilians are bad, and I kind of should have known that. So that's going to be in the next video. So save your comments. It's coming. This is a series. I've covered some rather far out there things since turning my attention to the supernatural and paranormal, but nothing that, at least in my opinion, is quite as weird or uniquely terrifying as reptilian humanoids. There's just something that happens to a person when they start believing very much in this particular alien phenomena, and you just start looking at the world around you differently too. I start getting suspicious of people and wondering, like, if they're these reptilians. Like, are you a reptilian? Is that person a reptilian? Believe it or not, this happens a lot to me. After all, when I tell you guys that I believe many of you are earth angels or star seeds, how can I possibly not start looking at people and believing some of them may possibly be reptilians as well? It gets even more creepy for me personally, because while I know there's no possible way, I've never in my life actually been around a reptilian, I can't tell you for sure, because unlike beings of love and light, and even some darker entities, I can't sense reptilians. At least not like that. I've never been able to. Like, I can tell when someone's starseed. I can tell when someone's earth angel. I can tell when someone's anointed. I can tell when someone has a negative attachment or is demonic possessed. Reptilians, I get absolutely nothing. I can even sense when there are shadow beings around and they're making themselves invisible. But I have never once in my entire life sensed that someone was reptilian. Skeptics and non-believers will say that if this is what I'm going by, then it should be that all this phenomenon doesn't exist then, right? Well, I take great pride in my sense of just knowing certain things. I don't believe for a second that this is the case either. I simply believe these are a far advanced and super intelligent life form that knows how to block being sensed or seen extremely well and extremely easily. Here are some encounters and some information I could find on these shapeshifters. I mean, they are shapeshifters, right? In a lot of the information I came across, it's kind of conflicting. Sometimes it says that they kill the human and take over their form, and other times it says that they are half human and half reptilian, which, by the way, is why I'm doing this video right now. It also says that they can just become this human without affecting the human. So the information is still out there, guys. I'm coming right off the alien hybrids. I haven't covered the reptilians and the roles I believe they play in that yet, but it's coming for sure, as I promised you in the last video. Some of this is extremely outlandish. I know it's hard to classify a lot of it, but I choose to include all of it anyway, because I think the lizard men encounters and all of the information I have on them are quite hard to believe in and of themselves. So either we're going to believe it or we're not. And like I always say, if you're still skeptical or non-believer by the end of this, I hope you kept an open mind and had some fun while you were here. Some of the other names for the reptilians are draconians, lizard people, saurians, and reptoids, just to name a few. Reptilians have popped up again and again in books written by some of our most well-known and well-loved authors throughout history. These authors include, but aren't limited to, Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith, Robert Howard. Many people say that life imitates art, but are these actual cases of art imitating life? Is there something these authors and countless others knew or saw that made them include these creatures in their works? In Helena Blavatsky's book called The Secret Doctrine, she mentions a race of dragon men who may have actually lived in Lemuria. I did a video on Lemuria I'll try to eventually put here as well, or you can just go back and look in my video list and find it if you're interested in that. This book is arguably one of the most influential and famous occult books ever written, and that's in my opinion as well. I'll only say this. It's definitely an interesting read if you like to really take your time with books. It is disorientingly long and very long-winded. It was published in 1888, though, and in my experience, people were unnecessarily verbose back then, especially the women. Sorry, but it's true. With books like Helene's and so many others in the same category, we start to get out of the realm of fiction and move into a place where the occult, world history, archaeology, mysticism, and astronomy intersect. In my opinion, they meet at a really quite comfortable place, though. All right, slow down. What am I talking about? My point is that for hundreds, if not thousands of years, possibly even for as long as there was the written word, you can find accounts of some sort of reptilian humanoid somewhere. They're called and named all different things, but if you do your research, you will understand they're all pretty much the same entities. Reptilian humanoid creatures who are never referred to as giving a peaceful feeling or giving off a friendly vibe. These guys will mess up your chill for sure. In my opinion, and honestly, the reason I really do believe that there is at least something to these supposed myths is that they just pop up over and over and over again. And in my mind and line of work, there's no room for coincidences. I'm going to talk about David Icke for a few minutes, guys. And yeah, I know, but love him or hate him, there's something about him that, in my opinion, actually gives him more credibility than most of these other so-called conspiracy theorists. And that's that he was pretty much a regular and mainstream guy for a really long time. I don't know his whole story, nor have I been able to research a lot about him, but from what I do know, he was a goalie for a well-known English soccer team. He was called a footballer, so I'm assuming that this is what was meant, American soccer. And also, he was a respectable reporter for the BBC. In my opinion, I just don't see any reason for him to just decide one day to make up these incredible theories, knowing full well he would be mocked and lose any and all credibility in the mainstream world. I mean, why would anyone do that? There has to be a reason why he decided reptilian humanoids were worth pursuing and pursuing publicly. The story goes, though, that in 1990, everything changed for David when, on a random day just like every other, he was walking past a newsstand and felt inexplicably drawn to a book written by a psychic healer from Brighton named Betty Shine. Eventually, he visited with her, and she told him that she had a prediction that he would one day become a great spiritual healer. He says that immediately following that visit, it was one strange experience after another that led him further and further down the rabbit hole of his research. I'm not here to talk exclusively about David Icke, and we'll move on, don't worry, but I feel he's important enough in the research and theories as a whole that it's really prudent to spend just a little bit of time discussing him, so bear with me. He was eventually invited to a BBC chat show, or I think that's what we like to call in the United States talk show, and he went public with all of his beliefs and was almost immediately labeled as a paranoid. I watched that interview and was pissed how they just mocked him relentlessly. Mass ridicule in the mainstream media calling him paranoid, and his credibility was completely shot. But that was just the mainstream media, because the paranormal and UFO community's ears perked right up, and they were very interested in what David Icke had to say. In 1999, however, things seemed to turn around when it appears, at least to me, that David Icke finally just embraced what he knew and decided to say, F the haters. He wrote a book called The Biggest Secret, which is where he first started talking about the reptilian race. In a nutshell, it's his belief that the Anunnaki gods of Babylonian lore are in fact a race of reptilian aliens who hail from the constellation Draco. And not only did they walk the earth as gods in the days of yore, but they still walk among us today as shapeshifters. Icke is not the first writer to suggest the theory of ancient astronauts, right? Others who have come before him include Erich von Daniken, who wrote Chariots of the Gods in 1968, and Zecharia Sitchin, who penned Divine Encounters in 1995. It's not a new concept by a long shot, and that's where I would ask any of you who are on the fence to please keep this in mind, okay? This is not new to David Icke, and that's what makes it so incredibly interesting to me. This all had to come from somewhere. Let's move forward a little bit. Reptilians are believed not only to come from another star system, but also another dimension. According to David Icke, the universe is actually a multiverse. So different dimensions occupy the same space, but are only accessible one, or in our case three-dimensional at a time. If you could push through dimensions, you would find other objects and species occupying the same space you're in now. So the reptilians could come from the Draco constellation, but not our Draco constellation. Icke writes that they inhabit the fourth dimension, which is just one dimension over from our world. Having crossed over, though, they can manipulate us to their own ends. They're far more advanced. So this is where my extreme interest in them came into play. When I realized that most likely these are entities who can be summoned by magic. And when I say magic, I mean magic with a K, guys. Entities summoned this way, even the good and light ones, want something in return. While the lovely and bright entities who are summoned through magical means usually want a bit of wine or some sweets, the more nefarious and even downright evil entities, such as I believe most of these lizard people are going to want a more sinister type of bargain or return on their investment, right? That's just good business. So this is another way in which they gain access to us in our world. Idiots who have no idea what they're doing, summoning them. So this is the biggest question I've come up against when dealing with and talking about this topic. Well, if they're really here, then why come we don't see them running around everywhere? David Icke helps me out here too, as he explains with several observations. The reptilians are shape-shifting humanoids, which means they already are bipedal and walk on two legs. So if they can overtake a human or shapeshift into one, which I believe they are easily able to do both of these things, then it's not a stretch that they will, for the most part, and unless someone was looking really closely, just fit right in. This is just to speculate here, right? But maybe this is why we're seeing so many of these videos of people allegedly slipping popping up on the internet in the past few years. Perhaps it's because more people actually are taking a closer look at our elite and celebrities. Leave Britney Spears alone. It's thought too that they are living in underground caves and therefore can basically come and go as they please without being seen. The world we see and the world as it is are two very different things, guys, and I believe this very, very much. Even if you do not literally believe in a holographic universe, you have to admit that quite often many people, and this is why I love this community so much, because we question everything and continue to do so until we find the truth. Not a truth we can live with, but the actual truth, and until we find that, we keep right on searching. But many people allow the wool to be pulled over their eyes by politicians, CEOs, and all manner of scammers and frauds. Is it really that hard to believe that a species that already lives like sheep may be bowing to extraterrestrial authorities? People miss what is right in front of them and vote against their own self-interest every day, at least in my very humble opinion, and without sounding too fanatical and without trying to get into a political debate. There's a reason I stopped watching the news, guys. At least I stopped watching all of the major media sources anyway. But that's just me, and let's move on. So before I get to the encounter, I just want to talk about what this super advanced interdimensional race of otherworldly beings would want with a bunch of lowly humans. How about they feel or know, depending on what you believe, that we are very easily manipulated and therefore they could easily overtake us and make us slaves to their race? I mean, there are humans who love power and prestige, so why would these entities be any different? I don't think they would. David Icke says that the reptilian race are here in order to mine for monatomic gold with the aid of human slaves, which apparently can boost the power of their nervous systems. This is how they're able to shapeshift, cross dimensions, etc. This sounds so incredibly demonic in nature to me. It gives me the creeps and gives me the chills. Allegedly, they also derive energy from human suffering, so it's well within their interest that we wage war, engage in animal cruelty, and so on. So here's where I had a decision to make, guys. I could go on with why some people in this community believe that this is exactly why the reptilians put certain people in certain positions of power, and also I could go through some of the theories as to who has been overtaken and why, or I could give you guys an encounter or two and make a part 3 video on the subject. I chose the latter because I still have so much more to learn. Obviously, like I said, I came across some, hybrid reptilians who are actually really great people, and I had no idea. So it shows that my research is nowhere near complete and not as well-rounded as I originally thought. So here's an encounter that I feel like you can take or leave, obviously, but I'm presenting it to you because it's one of the ones that I really believe in, and I believe that it happened. In 1977, in Henderson, Nevada, a woman named Cherry Hinkle lived alone with her 13-year-old son, whose name was Mark with a C. There were a lot of open wooded areas, like really dense woods, near their home at the time. And on this particular day, Mark and a friend of his decided to go and explore some nearby caves that were in these woods. They said they made their way to a circular chamber where they pretty much stumbled into an even deeper hole, and when they shone their flashlights down there, the light barely penetrated the blackness. It was just an abyss. They decided to turn some branches into a sort of makeshift ladder and climb down into the darkness. Cherry Hinkle recounted to UFO Digest what her son had told her had happened the next day. She reported, quote, "The pit was roomy with a short annex. Occasional debris littered the rocky floor, like a tin can or two, a battered teen magazine perched on a small outcrop of rock that served as a shelf. The boys explored the main cave, then turned their attention to the short tunnel or annex, and heard the sounds of voices and maybe the distant humming of machines. Intrigued by the thought that someone was mining nearby, the boys went deeper into the tunnel. On the far end, they found a rusty metal door, and near the door, a strange metal rod. The 1-foot rod was lightweight and resembled aluminum, with a cap on one end and a few strange engravings on one side. Startled, the boys heard the sound of guttural, harsh voices talking and the certain sounds of approaching footsteps. The boys became frightened by the strange vocalizations and hightailed it to their makeshift ladder and headed up toward the cave entrance on the upper level. As they exited, they heard what sounded like the metal door opening, its old metal screeching. They crawled out of the tunnel opening and ran away from the cave entrance. Thinking they were safe, they breathed a sigh of relief. Without a warning, they heard a loud, threatening growl. Harry and Mark looked back at the cave entrance, and to their horrified eyes, they watched as a very large greenish humanoid struggled to force his big body out of the narrow cave. The boys screamed and started running down the slope of the hill, running top speed. They didn't look back until they were near my backyard. End quote. The boys seemed to have brought proof with them when they came out of the cave. Cherry said they showed her a rod-like object that they had taken with them. It had strange carvings and symbols all over it. It was smooth and metallic and unlike anything any of them had ever seen, the material. Cherry said she would have had it taken to someone to have it looked at to see what kind of old relic it was or if it was even anything that was known at all. But something strange that happened later that same night seemed to indicate that the strange cave creature wanted this thing back pretty badly. She explained what happened later on by saying, quote, "It must have been around 2 a.m. when Mark shook me, whispering harshly that someone is trying to get into his bedroom window. I was hoping it was just a nightmare or that his nerves were still on edge." Quietly, we slipped into his bedroom and listened to the sounds of scraping at the window edge. He was not mistaken. In the light of the moon, I could make out the silhouette of the head and shoulders of a man. I was alone with my 4 kids, no husband to protect us, so I grabbed my flashlight, suddenly tossed the curtains open to face this man. There was a glare from the flashlight on the window, but past the glare I could see clearly a large head with ridges on the top, other ridges on his cheekbones, and the glow of golden eyes. Mark and I stood still, unmoving. Both fear and shock kept us frozen. The lizard man didn't move either, his hand still poised in his attempt to pry the window open. His hand was large, with webbed, rough, gnarly-looking fingers with powerful claws. After a couple minutes, not seconds, but long, agonizing minutes, with our hearts pounding, I knew I had to do something. One hand still holding the flashlight beam on his face and my eyes still locked into those golden eyes, I fumbled around in the dark with my other hand, hoping to find something to use as a weapon if needed. He glanced at my hand, looked back into my eyes. He turned his head a little, as if he was asking a question. He slightly opened his lipless lips, displaying 4 of his pointed teeth, and suddenly he turned and ran off into the desert. Later in the morning, we decided the reason the lizard man was breaking into the house was to reclaim that metal rod. Mark and I hiked back to the cave and placed the strange rod beside the cave entrance. End quote. So I'm assuming that this is where this bizarre story ends, as I couldn't find anything more beyond what's in this one report. That's all I have for you today, guys. I know I'm leaving you on kind of a cliffhanger, but it'll be worth it, I promise. I just want to get this out. I can't wait to see your guys' reaction to this. I love hybrids. I love reptilians. I love exploring this whole new world of extraterrestrial phenomenon, okay? Did I say that right? Extraterrestrial? I don't know. I'm really tired today, guys. Please be sure and give this video a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and spread the love by sharing this video. Please check out the description box. You will find some important links. My live stream that I do every Wednesday night right here on the Gemma Jade channel. Live intuitive oracle readings. I pull 1 card, first come, first serve. If you want a reading for that week, 1 card, come on in and get it. 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time to 10:45, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, in the description box, you'll find a link to my interview from October 7th, 2021 that I did about my book, Missing the Fae Theory on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. The interview was amazing. We talked about the Fae, we talked about Robot Granny, but that leads me into, we just premiered, it's last night as of when I'm filming this, the after-hour show on Spaced Out Radio with me, Big Willie Townsend, and Jon Hudson. And what we do is talk about paranormal, supernatural, extraterrestrial, with you guys in the chat, all these crazy things. We had an amazing time last night. It's every Saturday and Sunday night on Spaced Out Radio from 11 p.m. Eastern Time to 1 or 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Guys, you have to go over there and subscribe. Come on in, show me some love, tell them Gemma sent you so I know you're there for me. All right, everyone who came out last night for the premiere, thank you guys so much. The description box, you will find a link to the Kindle version and the paperback version of my book, Missing the Fae Theory by Gemma Jade on Amazon. All right, if you want an autographed copy, just email me before you make that purchase. Speaking of email, if you have any encounters with the supernatural and or paranormal, and you would like it to be a part of my listener encounters series, please keep sending them in, guys, to my email, GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. If I haven't responded yet and it's been like 2 weeks, that's okay. I am getting them. I'm planning on putting the next listener encounters video or 2 together this coming week. So just because you didn't hear from me doesn't mean I don't appreciate it. It doesn't mean that I'm not putting it in. I usually wait until I film the videos to let you guys know that I'll be using your story. I use all the stories that come in. I appreciate you guys helping me out. That content helps me so much. Also, if you would like an intuitive oracle reading, a personal from me, it's like 8 to 10 cards. I use a bunch of different decks. We get a really accurate and clear picture. You can ask anyone that I've read for. I do it for a donation of your choice or free. If you can't donate, that's fine too. It's a gift and I really enjoy doing it. I have a ton of openings now, so just hit me up with your first name and your birth date, all right? But also be patient when waiting for responses from emails. It could take me up to 2 weeks to respond to you. Usually doesn't take that long, but it could. Also in the description box, you will find ways to donate: PayPal, Cash App, Patreon, and Amazon wishlist gift link. If you're in a position to donate to the channel, I would really appreciate it. Guys, be kind to each other. It doesn't cost anything. It can make you feel so good. Hopefully, I can get my editor working again or figure out how to use the other one so that I can get this video actually out. I am planning on releasing a video before this, letting you guys kind of know what's going on and what's going on with Gemma Jade, and why I've been a little bit more absent than normal. Always go in grace, smile at a stranger. I know I'm all over the place, but I'm just so happy to be able to be filming again. Yay! I'll see you guys next time, okay? Hit me up, GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com, and I will see you over on Spaced Out Radio and Wednesday nights right here. Be there or watch me be sad. Bye, guys.